In a deposition recently made part of the public record, a longtime employee of Gossip Girl alum Blake Lively has offered a stark and unsettling description of a conversation he claims he overheard involving actor-director Justin Baldoni, best known for his work in film and television. The testimony, which has drawn wide media attention and amplified the increasingly complex legal battle between Lively and Baldoni, centers on what the driver characterizes as an inappropriate discussion about the actor's past sexual relationships with women, a discussion he found sufficiently shocking that it distracted him while he was behind the wheel and prompted him to warn Lively about his interaction afterward. The setting: a ride during production. According to the deposition, the driver, identified in court filings as Kevin Alexander, was tasked with transporting Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, and at least one other individual, described simply as another person present during the ride, between locations during the production of the film It Ends With Us. At the time, the movie was in active shooting, with Lively starring and Baldoni both co-starring and serving in a leadership role. The deposition reflects that this was Alexander's first time meeting Baldoni, and that his interaction with the actor was limited to this work-related context. What began as a routine drive, Alexander says, quickly shifted into a conversation he found very out of the ordinary for a professional environment. Rather than sticking to light or logistical topics, the driver alleges, Baldoni began to speak about his personal history of sexual relationships in graphic and unsettling terms, including references to consensual and non-consensual encounters. The alleged conversation: sexual history and discomfort. In his testimony, Alexander recounts that Baldoni talked openly about details of his sexual past in a way that made him uncomfortable. He specifically alleges that Baldoni described both situations where he was forced on by women and situations in which he forced himself on women. These kinds of statements, according to Alexander, were so disquieting that it took his focus off driving and lingered in his mind long after the conversation ended. "I've never met someone and talked like that in a vehicle before," the driver testified, suggesting that even conversations about careers or creative ideas typically steer clear of intimate personal details, especially in a professional setting with an employee. His deposition stresses that the nature of the content made the experience stand out sharply in his memory. Reaction and response. Reporting to Lively. Upon arriving at their destination, Alexander claims he exited the vehicle after letting everyone else out, and then took a moment to speak privately to Lively. He reportedly expressed to her that the conversation had made him uneasy and uncomfortable, and he even suggested that she consider conducting a background check on Baldoni, not fully understanding at the time that Baldoni was actually a producer on the film. This element of the deposition, the notion that a professional driver would feel compelled to warn his employer about the behavior of another actor on set, has drawn particular interest, as it positions the incident not just as an awkward moment but as something the witness felt had implications for workplace safety or professional conduct. Integration into broader legal context. The driver's testimony did not emerge in isolation. It was disclosed publicly as part of a wider legal confrontation between Lively and Baldoni, a dispute that began when Lively filed a complaint alleging that Baldoni created an inappropriate and hostile work environment during the film's production. That lawsuit, first filed in late 2024, includes claims of sexual harassment and retaliation, which Baldoni has denied. The unsealed deposition of Alexander, among other filings that have become public, comes amid an intensifying legal process. Both sides have been submitting evidence, including texts between Lively and others and negative testimony from other cast members. This deposition adds to the mosaic of workplace conduct claims that Lively's legal team has brought forward. Public perception and divided reactions. As soon as the details of the deposition hit the press and social media, reactions from the public and online commenters were swift and polarized. Some viewers expressed shock and concern over the idea that an actor might discuss episodes of force and sexual context in what should have been a professional moment. Supporters of the driver's testimony saw his warning to Lively as a sign of his seriousness and instinct to protect his employer. Others were skeptical. Critics pointed out that Alexander was an employee of Lively, a factor they argue could influence his interpretation of events or raise questions about motive. Some commenters on forums speculated that conversations about consent, relationships, and personal experience could be misinterpreted or taken out of context, especially if Baldoni has previously discussed similar themes publicly in educational or advocacy settings. Among skeptics, a common refrain is that employees in a service role may not always accurately gauge the conversational norms of actors or directors, particularly if abstract or emotional topics come up. They argue that without the full transcript of the conversation, it's difficult for outside observers to assess tone, intent, and context, all of which are critical in judging whether conduct was inappropriate or merely ill-timed.